G'day, Dean, and welcome to Screen. Now, this is one hell of a powerful movie. And I gather you not only directed it, but you co-wrote it, you edited it, and you produced it as well.
That's right, yes. And the reason for that was that it was based on a play. I responded very personally to the play. But in the process of adaptation, I had to be very much kind of guided by my instincts. I had to follow my intuition very closely. So I felt that if I could be really hands-on in the making of it, and really discover the story, discover the characters, and discover the way I wanted to tell the story, with the cast, I felt I had a greater chance of producing something that was truly personal to me and hopefully would resonate with audiences.
Well, you photographed it as well, I think, didn't you, with the camera largely on your shoulder. So a lot of it's actually filmed in close-up, and it's extraordinary. It's an intimate film, but it's extraordinarily intimate in its whole presentation.
Well, to me, the story, like I say, was very intimate. There's a sense in which our character is trapped within his own world. He can't escape his preconceptions of what he's expected to be and who he thinks he is. So I wanted to create a sense of claustrophobia as well as a sense of intimacy, and of course bring that subjectivity into it because it's really told through his perspective.
Why was the subject close to you?
Because in my life, I've experienced and witnessed a great deal of homophobic bullying growing up in Australia, and I think this is still an enormous problem that we confront. And it's easy to think, here in the inner city, everything's, rosy, but you just have to step a little bit outside, and particularly going into some of these sporting cultures to realise that we're a long way from where we need to be as a society.
I think even just a few weeks ago, there were homophobic slurs in one of the National Rugby League games, I think, and it must happen all the time on the field in footy games, I think.
Well, at least the conversation has started. I think we're a long way behind the rest of the world, but at least we've begun the process.
Now, the other thing is you're wearing all these hats. What was the budget of this film? Could you not afford an editor or a cinematographer?
Well, that was certainly a factor, and there were some times I remember checking the production bank balance on my phone while I was literally, rolling camera on the thing. So yeah, I mean, there's that, and you have to compartmentalise, and it can become a stressful process. One of the things that was important to me was to tell the story now, because this is an issue that I feel needs to be confronted. I think it's a very topical subject, and I was passionate about bringing this to audiences as quickly as I could. So I didn't want to go through the conventional development and funding process, market attachments, and I didn't want the story and the way I was going to tell the story to get watered down. So for that necessity, it was important to take what little resources we had and just run with it, basically.
Well, let's be introduced to the film on the beach where it all begins.
Ranger on your right.
Red pubes? Might be a clown for some reason. Go blonde chick, English, 12 o'clock.
How do you know she's English?
The teeth. I don't mind the odd crooked tooth, kind of like cubism, but talk about minding a gap.
Hey, so what's to go with sweet chicks?
New guy.
On my patrol. He's a little bit,
How's your father?
Oh, here we go. Emergency. Emergency.
Jesus, Lynn.
Now, you get a sense there of the very cinematic style of this film. It's unusual that most Australian films just aren't, in the end, really cinematic. It's as if you've come straight from film school with so many ideas which you've managed to condense down and turned up this really sort of concentrated piece of cinema. It really is a most unusual piece of work.
Well, thank you. One of my principles was to, how do you create huge production values on, almost no money? And I mean, living in Sydney, there are so many opportunities to do that. And of course, the beaches provide this spectacular backdrop. And of course, they're such a part of our culture, aren't they? And so what the film does is kind of subvert beach culture and kind of take a slightly sexualized view of it. But also look at the sort of darker underbelly of the violence and the prejudice and the narrow thinking that I think we have seen in the past around the culture of our beaches.
Do you know, I mean, the strong thing about this film is the performance of Matt LaVette. He is absolutely mesmerising as Len. You'd worked with him for many years, I believe.
Many years. I believe Matt's first screen performance was in my AFTRS short film Boys Grammar, which actually dealt with very similar subject matter, you know, bullying, homophobia. Matt's an incredibly brave actor, and he was actually for a long time saying to me, "Dean, you've just got to go out and make another movie." And he really pushed me and forced me into, you know, and gave so much of himself. And as you see, it's a very confronting performance, and it's a very personal one
really
as well.
intense. But you also shot on the streets of King's Cross too,
Yes,
didn't you?
that's right.
And you know, you sort of feel that you're right in amongst it. And I think we ought to look at this because it really does say it all.
Morning Club on New South Wales. Down south is where we are. At the beach or at the bar. We are red, gold, blue. You can be ready. Philly's gonna be red for the first time in a while. The
Powerful,
There's
powerful.
so much intensity, physical intensity in that
Kind of
performance.
kinetic
too.
quality to him, something that's almost elastic in its physicality.
Yeah, well, that was a very conscious choice that Matt and I made. He spent months kind of, you know, bulking up and doing all the stuff, and also going out to the beaches and researching and really finding the physicality of that character, and of course the voice of that character as well. Matt's very much not like that as a person, which
really?
it's a transformational performance.
Gee, I've got to tell you, that's a relief to hear.
Yeah, wouldn't want to need him. No.
But the thing that I'm interested in is this whole other world of making films and distributing films. The crowdfunding and how that funnels in. Can you tell us a little bit about
What
that?
is crowdfunding?
Well, fundamentally, we make films for audiences, and I think, unfortunately, too many things get between the filmmaker and the audience. With this film, right from the outset, we were like, we're just going to do it. We shot a very short, like 2-minute trailer. We put it on the internet, and we asked people what they thought of it. We also asked them if they liked it to get involved by, you know, putting in like spare change or what have you. And we raised the first chunk of money that actually got us started. Now, we then found that this idea of this film resonated, and other people came to us with offers of investment and support, and it just became an enormous community, mobilizing around the film, but also mobilizing around the issues of the film. So then, cut to sort of two years later, once we've actually finished the film, we've got a kind of an inbuilt audience. So we have an enormous social media reach. And rather than do the traditional sort of dump it at the box office for 4 days and sort of, you know, watch it tank, unfortunately, we now have got people who want to see the film. We sold out 2 enormous screenings in Sydney. We sold out 2 screenings in Melbourne.
And this is called on-demand screening, I gather. Is it?
Exactly. This is Tug Cinema on Demand. And what this basically is that if you come across a film that you like, you can put in your postcode, you can arrange a screening in your local cinema at no cost, as long as you can get a minimum of people there, which is about 40, 50 people, depending on the cinema. The screening goes ahead, and you get a percentage of the box office. So there's this great idea of kind of sharing, of discovering something that might not be in the mainstream, bringing it to your community, and then mobilizing them to come out and watch it and enjoy it on the big screen.
But there's an irony here, isn't there? While you're doing this in this country, this film is now screening in cinemas, I think you were telling me before, in Germany.
That's right. It's screening in 28 cities in Germany. It's got a big distribution deal in the UK and the US. Here in Australia, it's much more grassroots. Next week, I'm going up and down the East Coast for a series of event-type screenings. But look, it's been amazing because the film is confronting. It deals with, you know, I think issues that people are sometimes reluctant to discuss. But to see the way people have responded to it in this context of social media, it's just so exciting.
I do not understand when you've sold to countries overseas like that there was no distributor in this country that wanted to pick it up and put it out there for you.
Margaret, I'm as puzzled as you. I think it's difficult to. I think there's a perception here that you're a niche and that it is hard to do niche in this country. I think that's a misconception, personally.
In this
Well,
country.
how does
exactly.
money, income, return to the niche creator?
Well, that's a very good question. And of course, fundamental to this process has been the fact that the cast and crew have, of course, deferred their wages, which is a huge sacrifice when you think about, you know, so there is a bit of a way to go in terms of this being an immediately sustainable model. That said, funds from the cinema on demand screenings are remitted back to the filmmakers. We have the international sales. A lot of deferred payment films never repay their cast. We're really optimistic that we want to set the example and show that low-budget films can work and that there is a business model. You know, particularly if we can get that just that extra little bit of support for low-budget filmmaking from the outset.
Now, is it true that your crew was largely your your directing class from afterwards? Is this how you actually put this crew together who are willing to defer their salaries and?
That was part of it.
fees?
Yeah, after my last film, Road Train, I went and taught for a while. I taught directing, and yeah, I basically said to my graduating class, you know, it's either unemployment or you can make just as much money on unemployment, which is nothing. You can come work for me for free on this film. And you know what? These guys loved it. We shot for 61 days. We didn't lose a single crew member. It was an incredible community spirit and just such passion behind this film.
Well, I've got to congratulate you because it's actually a very strong cinema experience. I wish I'd seen it in the cinema.
I hope you still get the
It
chance.
starts on the beach and it ends very darkly on the beach.
I think you find Phil attractive. I think you do.
And you don't?
I hate the cunt. I'm not touching his undies.
Just took off his top.
I'll spud you. 2, 3. You always choose scissors, you dumb cunt.
Fuck off.
Take off his undies.